introduce you.
Yes.
And then, okay, cool. Thank you. Good. And then
Να μιλήσω από εδώ.
I will just hand you the mic when I'm done.
Okay.
Okay, I like the tats.
Thank you.
You're the Microsoft lady.
I am.
Love to meet with you at some stage. I've met with Ayanda
Oh,
a
yeah,
few
he's
times.
South Africa, I'm Africa.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, he's boss.
Very good. I've got 19, but they're all from a corporate point of view, nicely hidden. You know?
Oh, it's not like that at Microsoft. We're
I don't
encouraged.
think most people worry about it much anymore.
No, we're encouraged to be ourselves.
Yeah,
So,
that's good.
Yeah, they've all seen them all. They go all the way around. So, yeah, maybe. And then obviously travel around. Yes, please do.
Guys, how many challenges time? We'll see that. All right, I hope you had a great coffee break and a great networking experience. We're going to kick off with a panel discussion over the next 40 minutes. The topic is interesting, enhancing customer experience with generative AI, personalization and hyper-personalization in telecommunications and the beverage industry. The beverage is the one that's of most interest to me. Anyone from SA Breweries? Can we automate more beer production, please? Now, I'm going to hand over to Harry, the CTO of Superbro AI, and then the panelists will introduce themselves, and we look forward to this conversation. Please welcome them with me. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Harry. I'm the CTO of Superbo, and I hope we have a very interesting discussion today. The topic is enhancing customer experience with the use of generative AI. With me, we have a panel of experts and industry leaders, and I hope we have a very good experience and discussion. So I will pass it over to Dimitri, who will be introducing our panel members.
Thank you very much. So let me just start a small intro of who we are, who is Superbo, and what we do. We are a conversational AI firm or ecosystem, I might say, spanning all the way from natural language understanding to speech to text, to our dialogue manager, and all the way to our integration and conversational AI experts. Today we have a diverse and beautiful panel of experts who will share their insights and experiences and perspectives on various aspects of generative and conversational AI, from its development and implementation to all the way to the impact on society and the future of human-machine interaction. We were lucky enough to put our hands at the very beginning of this year, and we managed to launch the first complete telco generative AI with the help of Microsoft for the biggest telco in Nigeria. You all know who that is. So I'm going to start by introducing the ladies and the gentlemen. I'm going to start with Leanne James from Microsoft. She is the data and AI lead for Africa. Nadine Sigmani from MTN. She is the digital transformation expert, along with Mr. Ishad Gauss, also same team, MTN, from the CX expert team. And last but not least, we have our good friend Sipo Chabalala, right? Digital product owner for Coca-Cola in South Africa. Thank you very much. I'm going to pass that to Harry now.
Okay, so let's start with the very first thing. We all heard the term generative AI, but let's first try to understand what we mean by Gen AI and where does it apply? So the first question will go to Leanne.
Cool. If it's on. It's on? So Dimitri could have used Gen AI now to pronounce Sipo's name, right? Because Gen AI essentially refers to a version of AI that can create and generate things like images, text, documents, voices, all sorts of files, right? So at its native form, it's leveraging more traditional AI to generate something new that's human-like. And typically it's aligned to cognitive type services. So sight, speech, and vision. I said sight already, right? That would be my short answer.
Okay, would anybody else like to add something to that? Okay, so now that we know and we have the definition of Gen AI, as we said, the main topic today is how this applies to improving conversational experience, customer experience. So let's start discussing about why Gen AI is important for customer experience. And the first person to take a hit on this is Sipo. Sipo?
Cool. The Chabalala was very good. We were debating the C4 yesterday because sometimes people try to pronounce C4 in English and say C4, and that means something very different. So I'm C4. Yeah, so I think just an answer to your question then, Harry, is I think for us, from a Coca-Cola perspective, generative AI really gives us a unique opportunity in how we engage with our consumers. Being one of the kind of the biggest, most known brand in the world, building and entrenching more brand affinity is something that is super important for us. And we found pretty interesting use cases within our marketing space where we are able to bring consumers even more closer with AI, which at certain times it may sound like an oxymoron, but it allows us with the hyper-personalization to have that personal human touch. There's an example of a campaign we did, unfortunately not in Africa yet, called Create Magic. So what we did there is we gave the ability to normal consumers to create ads for us. And those ads were aired in prime kind of marketing spots like Times Square, and different places that we actually have space to advertise. And we use, I think Johan mentioned earlier, DALL-E, which is the image component that we used, and we also use ChatGPT-4 to do that. So you would go on as a consumer and say, so we would upload a repository of all our Coke asset imagery. You would see everything we've had all over the years, right? Choose one of our brands and say to the model, I want someone to hold this Coke with an astronaut suit on the moon. And it will build the image for you, build the ad, and it's quite a unique ad that's out there. And we took the best, and we actually created those ads, and they were running, and it was very beautiful. And it's opportunities like that that show us how we can bring our customers much more closer. And having them to create something like that is something 10 years ago, if you ask someone, would have never been done. So it does give us that unique opportunity to engage customers differently and deeper interest customer affinity.
Yeah, maybe if I can add to that. Good morning, everyone. So I think you touched on hyper-personalization, right? But I think taking it a little bit further back, why is customer experience important? So what's the human element? And what makes a good customer experience? Because ultimately, AI or any other technology is meant to enhance these attributes to serve us all, right? So why is customer experience important? Because at the end of the day, that's how we cement our customer base. It's how we attract customers. And if we do a good enough job, it's how we extract additional value or give more value, increase our usage of services and products, right? Any customer experience team will say, the ultimate end goal is for you to build customer loyalty, right? And there's the often cited term that exceptional customer experiences are the only sustainable platform for competitive differentiation. And I think as we advance in Africa and a lot of our products and services move towards homogeneity, it's really customer experience and differentiated customer experience that is going to segment the winners from the losers for that customer, right? So what makes a good customer experience? Because that's what generative AI helps us with, like Sipo spoke about. A good customer experience, sure, is quick and easy and enjoyable, but at a deeper level, customers want to feel certainty. I think that was a word that was used earlier, or they want to feel in control. And ultimately, what we all want with an organization is to have a sense of belonging, or a very suitcase word to do that is to be understood, right? It's no different to any relationship, personal or professional. And what generative AI allows us to do better than before is to use these large data sets to improve our customer interaction so you feel it's hyper-personalized. It's very nuanced for you, for what you need at a point in time as an individual in your journey within the environment that you find yourself in life, right? So we understand customer preferences, but we're also able to engage with customers in a way that suits them and their needs. So ultimately, being felt understood, which is core to a customer experience.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. And you also touched an important subject that we're going to be discussing a bit later, which is data. But the next question, which goes again to the MTN team, has to do with how it can be used to deliver personalized experience. We discussed why it's important. Now let's discuss how Gen AI can actually be used.
Sure, thanks, Harry. I'll take that one. Good morning, everyone. So personalization in telco is not new. You know, the telecoms industry has been doing it for over a decade now, even at MTN, with the customer value management capability, using targeted campaigns to individuals based on their usage and cross-selling and upsell. Quite basic. But now with generative AI, you know, you take it a step further. You move from personalization at a segment level to hyper-personalization, where each individual is considered a segment. Their needs are their individual needs, and it's not just a high-volume customer or a youth customer. It's you as an individual. And what generative AI, you know, can do is bring in, like Irshad was talking about, that added level of connection. And then in terms of use cases, it's not just here's a data package that we thought you might like, but here is a data package for you. If you are a farmer in Nigeria, every morning you're checking the weather. At the end of every week, you're sending data to your daughter because she needs it. You do that on a regular basis. Generative AI would help say, hey, you know, how about this new package for your daughter? Or here is the weather for today. Which channel would you like it on? Would you like to receive it on WhatsApp? Or, you know, here is a link to the site that you use. So it's taking it to the next level based on that customer's specific needs. And I think also what's important when we come to Chatbot, it's about the memory layer that's involved and the conversation trail that's involved. You're not just engaging with a bot as a new user every time you log on. You know, generative AI would help the bot remember, you know, what you queried about last week and say, hey, you know, is this still an issue for you? You have tried steps 1, 2, and 3. How about step 4? And that's just taking it to the next level, as I mentioned.
Okay, Sipo, would you like to take a hit at this?
Sure. Yeah, so we also have prime examples within our bottler space, within the network of bottlers, specifically in Hellenic area that we do have here in Africa, where we do personalized offerings from business to business. But what we've managed to do is that we have very advanced algorithms in which we're already giving out the kind of the product offerings for the different businesses. But how we managed to kind of infuse generative AI within that process was very different than, we previously envisioned for suggested orders, right, which is like a product categories we do have on our side. So we've overlaid our algorithms that we do have to sell these products to our different bottler network systems with OpenAI to generate just the messaging, nothing else. They don't come up with a product or the imagery or anything, but just the personalized message where we present the product to the customer to say, hey, we think based on 1, 2, 3, you'd like to buy these type of products. So, and those messages are as personalized as it would be. So, and it's a vast amount of customers. So you, in a normal world without generative AI, you'd have someone type out 1,000 unique messages to each and every one of these clients for them to feel personal and have that human touch, which is why I mentioned earlier that in as much as it's AI, some of the capabilities give us that ability to communicate with customers with a bit of human touch because of the personalization. So we send these messages through email, SMS, and WhatsApp, just depending on what the market uses. So that would be the prime example I'm at liberty to share of how we used it.
Can I add something though, Harry, as well? So I think it's great. All the use cases that you're talking about, I loved your use case about the dynamic ad creation, by the way. In a similar industry, I'm seeing something like that. But I think what we should consider as well is not just the customer-facing interaction, but how we can use generative AI to support internal employees to be better at serving their customers. So it's not necessarily what the customer is touching, but what maybe the agent behind the call center where it eventually goes to is getting, where they're using generative AI to service their need to support you as a customer better as well as back office, right? Behind every telco and bottler and beverage producer, there's an entire office of people that keep the doors open and the lights on. And let's think of Coca-Cola and MTN. I mean, I've worked a lot with MTN. You have a lot of data. And so data summarization is another one of the use cases, I think, whilst very useful for your end customer, servicing the people in the back room or the back office that service that customer, that it becomes even more helpful so that you're giving them the knowledge they need to better respond in a quicker way. Just thought I'd add that.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. So far, what we have discussed about is what Gen AI is, why it's important to customer experience, and how it can be used to improve customer experience. But there are other sides to this, and one important topic has to do with customer awareness. Are there any ethical dilemmas about the use of data? How do we ensure we have transparency and build trust with the customer? From the MTN team, who would like to take a hit at this?
Sure, I'll give it a stab. I suppose your question ultimately, like you mentioned, comes down to transparency. Usually when we hear that word, we all look to our regulatory teams to give us the answer. But I think the intuitive answer is transparency is the right answer, particularly for AI, and I think that there's a few reasons for this. One is I don't think there's a reason to hide it. It's a great thing that we're doing. But more importantly, this morning we saw the demographics of the African population where 60% are regarded as youth. I like to include those in their 30s, so I feel young. So 70% of the population is in their youth category. 40s, it's 85% of the population that is youth. So if you look particularly at Gen Z, who've taken the baton on from the millennial predecessors, there's a desire or there's an expectation to understand all components of a value chain in how they're receiving their products and services. Usually people think that means just the supply chain, right? So what's fair trade coffee? But really what people are looking to understand is how I'm being served. It's supply chain as well as value chain and how I'm being interacted with. So I think one, that's critically important to disclose that. The second thing that's really important, where it becomes more important, particularly with generative AI that's being used in the front line to engage with our customers, there's no reason to not disclose that. Because if you don't, going back to what's important from a customer experience perspective, if you don't disclose it, you break trust. And trust immediately will dissolve any good customer experience that you have. So it's one of the principles that we have with our chatbot. Lydian's going to talk about that later, Ziggy, where one of the design principles is actually Ziggy needs to be empathetic, but never insincere and never pretend to be human, right? You don't want to break that trust. And I think a second principle when it comes to transparency is that as organizations who are really leading the charge for AI at scale, we have an obligation or perhaps an opportunity to take our customers and societies along with us on this AI journey. So this morning we spoke about the world being really polarized on AI. People who want AI to do everything for them so we can sit on the couch. And then there's the other side who thinks that AI is Arnold Schwarzenegger making good on his promise that he'll be back in Terminator. All the Gen Zs have no idea about that reference, but go and check it out. But we have an obligation to actually take our customers with us to show them the power that generative AI can yield for good, and also be honest where it doesn't work. So I think there's a tremendous amount for us to do from that perspective for societies as well.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to take an answer?
I mean, all I'm going to add is that the responsibility of using AI responsibly is the human responsibility, right? So the Terminator reference, I used it at a talk yesterday and only half the room laughed, so you're right, not everyone got it. But also those that did get it stuck their hand up and were like, that was the first thing they thought of. But you must remember, AI stands for artificial intelligence, right? The intelligence piece comes from humans. And likewise, the responsibility of using it correctly comes from humans. So how you're applying it and who you're servicing with it and what you're doing with it is actually up to you who builds the use cases. It's not up to the AI. Because, I mean, in AI, if you ask the questions the right way, it will tell you how to take over the world, especially if you put it in a Pinky and the Brain reference. Again, Gen Zs might not get that one either. But we did test it, and it went pretty far. It got scary. We switched it off. So I think to the question, Harry, about the transparency thing, I think, one, you have to be transparent and honest, but two, make sure you're building in the guardrails that make sure that you're using it responsibly with your customers, and that you're also putting in markers for any potential biases, data leaks, making sure you're also using the data you're receiving back in a responsible manner. That's important.
Thank you very much. So we used three terms a lot, customer experience, AI, but also data was mentioned throughout this discussion so far. And these three are interrelated. Data is very important for the training aspect of AI. And also the sourcing of the data quality, the diversity of the data for bias handling and so on is very important. And Sipo, can you please tell us what your thoughts are on this topic?
Yeah, and I think it's such an important aspect of AI. The AI is just as good as the data you feed it, and how you teach it. I think I was listening to, it's not a podcast, it's probably a human I listen to, because I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. But basically, the guy would say the battle for information now is where you get the information, not whether the information is out there or not. Same with how we feed these bots. Context, and I heard a lot of people mention it. To avoid these biases is super important. So feeding it the right data, updating that data all the time. I know you guys are still running on data from 3 years ago, so we still need to update it.
Maybe you weren't signed up to the right one.
No, but they do declare it. They do declare it when we start. Yeah, on 3, you do declare it. But that's also so important. But did that hit hard? Sorry. No, it wasn't supposed to hit that hard.
I take data seriously. I'm a data nerd.
Okay. But also just keeping it up to date, letting the user know what the data is for is also absolutely important, just to build on that transparency. It's what are we going to use it for? So the user is also not surprised when you talk to them. How are you keeping it secure? And the language you use to communicate all those things is also very important. If I go with some sort of technical term to express how I'm going to keep your data and how I'm going to keep it secure, probably doesn't make sense to the user here and there. But that just builds onto the transparency that we spoke about, to say communicate, get the consent, make sure you feed the proper data in so that what comes out to the user is something that they can use.
Can I add to that? Yeah, and I also think, when we talk about data, and especially in the telco space, it sounds very complex and very complicated. Like, which data points do you actually use? Because you have millions of data points for a single customer. But something that we're doing with the chatbot, as you know, is, the bot is a virtual agent, essentially, and we have the information to train it. It's coming from the call center. It's coming from the queries that the customers actually need, not what we think they need. it's the customer that's telling us exactly what data needs to be in that bot to train that bot and continuously learn. And picking up on the questions or queries that customers are actually calling from, building it into the bot, and then understanding, when a new query comes, can we answer it or not? And then learning from that and taking it from there. So as much as data seems very, very complex, I think for customer experience specifically, it's coming from what you're already recording and what customers actually need help for. So all of that is there, and it's there for us to use.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to the next topic, what we usually tell our customers is that we live in a world that is continuously changing, and we need to continuously adapt. So becoming an AI-first organization, we don't see it as an end state for an organization. We see it as an ongoing journey. Okay, so in the process of adopting generative AI, where is your organization currently? First MTN team, and then we'll go to Coca-Cola.
Okay, great. So with MTN, in terms of generative AI, it's something that we've been working with since almost the beginning of the year, and around April became more mature with how we plug it into our chatbot. So I wouldn't say that we're a beginner in this space. I think we're somewhere between novice, moving on to intermediate, if I want to, be ambitious here. But especially in our biggest market, MTN Nigeria, to release generative AI to market, to our customers, is a big deal, being the first in the space in the country on our chatbot. So I think, I do not think that we're new to this. I think we're on the journey. We're not AI first just yet, but we're learning, and we're continuously learning from what we've already deployed. So very exciting times ahead for us.
Yeah, I think on our side, from a generative AI perspective, we would say we just have from a marketing perspective, a first mover advantage. I think we'll carry on using it quite a lot in that space with the partnership we have with Microsoft and the team. I think late last year, I'm just bringing her back in. So I think late last year, I don't know if we all saw this ad, but there was an ad we had called Masterpiece, where we used OpenAI for it. This is an ad which could take a couple of months. It took a couple of weeks just to do. So a lot of efficiencies using OpenAI. So we will expand on those use cases within our marketing space, and also try new things. And also between our consumer and customer space with the bottler, we are experimenting with quite a few use cases that you'll see in the market very soon.
Okay, thank you very much. Now for Leanne, because we mentioned OpenAI, we mentioned Gen AI, and Microsoft plays a key role in this area, in this domain. Can you briefly explain to us what the strategy of Microsoft is, what your offering is?
Sure. Okay, without doing the sales pitch. So I was having a chat with the Casisto team very briefly earlier, and I mentioned to them this whole concept of AI for all is pretty much where we're going for it, but I'll use our typical Microsoft buzzword, which is democratizing. So for us, what we're trying to do is make AI accessible to all, so no matter the size of the organization or the individual. If you look at a lot of the product sets that we've built, they've been focused around the concepts of co-pilots. So how do we take a security officer, build in some form of co-pilot type activity, leveraging obviously Azure OpenAI, which is our partnership with OpenAI, and we make their job that much easier by taking away some of the more mundane tasks that take a long time. So our strategy is a lot about building co-pilots, firstly, in our own technology stack, but secondly, enabling customers like MTN and Coca-Cola to create their co-pilot, because their co-pilot could look different. We've heard already their use cases, there's similarities, but there's massive differences as well. So the idea for us and our partnership with OpenAI globally was, how do we enable the customers and their customers to create their own co-pilots so that they can achieve more with less, because that's the whole idea there as well. So importantly to remember, by no means do we want Arnold and his Terminator bots back taking over, but what we definitely do want is to enhance the human experience by taking away the noise and chaos that's not necessary. Even someone like a receptionist, if we could take away some of the part of the job that is not fun for her and not elevating her, and we're elevating her by giving her access to technology like AI tools, then we're succeeding in our mission. If you don't know it, it's to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more, and quite simply that's what we're going with Azure OpenAI.
Thank you for that. So I'll try to wrap up. I think we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but then we can take some questions. So the bottom line, Gen AI is something that is already here. It's here to stay. It has a very important role in personalizing customer experiences. It depends on the sourcing of data and the diversity of data, which helps tackle the biases and so on. There are some ethical dilemmas with regards to customer awareness that must be addressed when you're trying to adopt it. But at the end of the day, it is a very powerful tool, and it's a tool that is necessary in order for any organization to move over to the next step in its journey to become an AI-first organization. So this is it with regards to the discussion. Does anybody would anybody like to answer, to add something? Okay. And we can move over to questions.
One question on the app, and we know who it is for, MTN. Why do we not see personalized packages or even decent recommendations on mobile packages yet? Given that telcos, not my words, Yusuf's words, given that telcos know more about us than we do, who said that? Okay. What are the barriers to using this new capacity or capability and taking new features to market? I think that it's a good question, but it's tricky. I would also like a mobile package that's totally suited to my needs. I don't know if that business model would work. And then we can ask the audience the only question on the app.
Yeah, so I'll take that one. So that is exactly part of the roadmap that we have. It's always difficult to talk about a roadmap. But the example that Nadine used about farmers as a big cohort for what we see across the African market. So we already have packages that are tailored to those segments. At the moment now, we still have a very aggregated view for these packages. But what generative AI allows us to do is essentially create a bespoke package for each and every individual. The complexity behind doing that is it's not just data that is required to understand the customer, but you also have to have a tremendous amount of, let's call it back office data, to understand what happens to your pricing models, to your network planning capacity, so on and so forth. So it's not just about the design of the product, but almost the entire core business that has to come to the fore in creating that bespoke feature set, that bespoke product offering for the customer. So it's on the roadmap, and we're trying to work out how we deliver that in the best way possible.
If I could add to that, is this on? Yes. Okay. And you know, the considerations, just another one to consider is the regulatory environment. So South Africa, you know, is quite unique. I would say it's one of our easier markets, but when we look at Nigeria, Uganda, you know, the price floors and the price limitations implemented by the telco regulator, it's not that easy to now just give you a package with this amount of data and at this price without considering all of that. So that's an input that would need to go into the design of the bespoke packages as well, which is it's very tough. Can change on the fly, and you need to create that capability to adapt to that as well.
Yeah, I think the point that I made earlier about the obligation that we have for transparency for our customers, I think the word I used was for society as a whole, because governments that tend to be very regulated don't fully understand the impact of AI as well. So there's a tendency, as with any new technology, to hold the line on what we do know. So what we have to do as part of our shared value model is actually take governments that we work with as well on the journey. I mean, we're doing that as a telco, but also with our tech partners like the likes of Microsoft, is to work with governments so that essentially we do get to that end goal that customers want, but we have to take everyone on the journey to get there.
And I'd just like to add quickly, we do have MTN for you with special personalized deals for each customer. Yeah.
We can do about, I think, 3 or so more questions if you want to.
Yes, please. Anybody have any more questions? And the previous question was very good, and you can understand that a question was good by the time it takes for the answer. So it was a lot of time for the answer. So yes, please. Yes.
One, two. No. 1, 2, 1, 2. No. 2, 1, 2.
Thanks for that. I'm going to try and be a bit sneaky and fit in 2 questions, if that's okay. One question specifically towards the CX and digital experts. Often with technology and adoption of technological products and innovation, we often see this like hockey stick adoption rate. And my feeling is that we're sort of at the bottom of this hockey stick heading upwards. What do you, in your space, in customer experience space, see the future applications of generative AI looking like in customer experience? And specifically for Microsoft, we talk about getting AI in the hands of everybody and democratizing, but we also talk about safety of using this, and that also being on the human side. So what is Microsoft doing to ensure safety and guardrails and basically education on how to use these technologies effectively and safely?
Sure. So maybe I'll go first. So that's a great question. I don't know if we're at the bottom of the hockey stick. I think that there's a ton of work to do, and it depends market to market in terms of, let's call it technology maturity, but also awareness, right? So if I think about what this means from a CEX perspective, there's sort of the obvious things that we touched on a little bit earlier in terms of creating value propositions that are really meaningful to you as an individual. But also moving on to not just understanding what you require today, but using the large data sets that we have to almost predict what you will need tomorrow, because that's an amazing customer experience. You know what I need before I need it. And we have, Nadine spoke about it, that every customer is an individual segment. Across the markets that we serve, we have a very wide spectrum of customers. We have the extent of people who are using voice and a smartphone for the first time. That's a major part of our African population. To those of us who are sitting, with the 5G-enabled iPhone, as an example. What our plan is for CX is actually probably no different to any other organization sitting here, but tailoring the customer experiences in a way that's never been done before, that an experience is very bespoke. Because just based on scale, we've had to create generic experiences, right? You go up, you buy a phone, you buy a SIM, now we have digital services, you use mobile money, we're doing it in large cohorts. The plan from an experiential perspective is your proposition is tailored, your experience is tailored, how we communicate with you on that experience is tailored, and how we serve you thereafter is tailored. So it's the standard customer engagement lifecycle, it's just incredibly nuanced.
Okay, I just want to make sure you asked a few questions. What are we doing around the responsibility and then education and getting the message out there, right? Yeah. So from a responsible AI perspective, there's a couple of things we do as Microsoft. Number one, we have a toolkit that's openly available out there. It's got a number of products in it, including some open source that can range from testing your code to testing the policy of how you've implemented AI, etc., that we make available. You can go today, search it, you'll get it, and you can download the tools and run it. And it's meant to highlight any potential biases, misuse of services, etc., etc. Stepping back, though, how we make sure that if you're leveraging a service like Azure OpenAI, we've made it GA, everyone knows that, but you can't just go and deploy the services. You can't go online and just spin up an Azure OpenAI service and apply it. You go through a process. The Superbo and MTN and Coca-Cola teams would know this. We've worked together on various projects where there is a level of human review of your use cases before they approve it. Even after that, as a customer, you've got two options. One, you opt in for human review quarterly. So even quarterly, the engineering teams will do a human review of the way you've applied the use case and making sure you're adhering to the responsible AI set of code and conduct that we've put in place. And then, or you opt out, and if you opt out, it means there's certain functionality you can't use. And then you'd have to divert yourself to something like the public OpenAI forum, right? So we have that. And then from an education perspective, I think it's a really good question. It's so new in Africa in such a way, but it's actually not. We're doing a lot of activities. I'd love to be able to share it via this forum with everybody, where we're doing things like hackathons, as an example. We've partnered with MLabs, they're an NGO, and Africa AI, to do hackathons where we're going to student level, we're going to startup level. We do that partially with some education, and we spend a whole day on responsible AI use, and then go into a hackathon type activity. And then, of course, there's a variety of other things that we're doing. There are also a lot of online materials that are free to use. So I hope I've answered the question thoroughly enough. Cool.
Okay, we have time for one more question. It's the gentleman in the fourth row over there. He asked for the microphone.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask a question regarding localization. So, I mean, on the African continent, South Africa, we have 11, now 12 official languages. Nigeria is also quite vast with languages. And most of the generative AI tools that exist right now are catered for English and not so much some of our languages. There's a lot that needs to happen. I just wanted to check, what are you guys' thoughts on the journey that African countries need to take, where big companies like OpenAI are not really focusing their efforts on stuff that might be relevant for everyday citizens in our countries?
So it's me. Okay. I'm going to do this twofold. I'm going to answer the question, and then I'm going to ask the people on the panel to commit to what they'll do as doing more, right? As the customers. But you raise an exceptionally valid point, and I've been working with customers in the AI space for like 5 years, very dedicated. I've done a lot of things with companies like MultiChoice, etc., where we're trying to deliver content with local language. It has not progressed as far as many of the other languages have, and certainly you call out something really relevant from OpenAI. However, I'm going to flip it on its head and explain that some of the challenges, certainly from what I've seen from Microsoft and the other providers here might have a different view, is that there's a lack of data that's coming through for us to train those models correctly. So a year ago, we released the English ZA language model, and it was great because it could pick up some of the nuances of our accents. In case you didn't realize, we have like 40 across South Africa. But again, to do things like Afrikaans and Zulu has taken us longer because we're only getting content from one provider right now, one customer that was prepared to give it to us. So I think, yes, we need to do more, but we need to get better access generally for content to be sent up and moderators to show you where it's gotten it wrong. So there's probably an opportunity for someone in this room to set up an org or a situation where you can make it open for people to upload data that they've already curated as well and help us progress at a faster route for that. But you're certainly calling out a very valid point. You go next. What are you guys going to do about it?
Would anybody like to also take on the answer?
I think it's a very important question, especially with us as Coca-Cola being everywhere. I mean, there's some countries where English is just, that's not a medium that they use. So, I mean, we'll be looking to our partners, of course, to have these things there, and with the challenges that she's mentioned as well. It's some stuff that we are aware of, but absolutely we will want to run models to specific local dialects that are there so that we can get as much engagement as we can.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think just from MTN's perspective, similar to any other product or platform we've released, we do consider the localization aspect. We are across 20 markets, there's several dialects, and already the chatbot on the conversational part of the AI, we are multi-language. We are, even for an English in a Nigeria or South Africa, it's different. I know my time is up. We're building in the local dialects. So as we go on the journey of generative AI, that will come as well.
Okay, one closing statement from myself. I feel the question because I'm also from a country who has a language which is not English, which is Greece. We are a small country, so we cannot force vendors to invest. But I think, going back to the topic of the entire conference, Africa collectively can help and make a business case for organizations like us and like Microsoft to invest and to build the support for native languages. Thank you.
Fantastic. Please give them a hand. You can leave your mics on the chairs. That was a great discussion. Thank you so much.